Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews, the podcast where we take a look at older movies that we remember, usually from our youth, not always, but mostly, and see, that's still good? Still a good thing? This thing watchable? Often the answer is no, but sometimes the answer is yes. We'll find out about this week's movie, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, this is an interesting one, Chris, because I am under the impression you're not really a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles guy. Is that fair?
No, I don't know. I've been trying to work this out because, I knew all the names.
Yep.
I knew April O'Neil, and I watched the cartoon a bit as a kid, but I don't believe I watched this film. No, if I was going to bet, I would say my knowledge comes from the cartoon, and weirdly, like comics. I don't know whether someone had given me like an annual, or maybe like the Power Rangers magazine used to have a little strip from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know. If I was a betting man, I think it's probably the cartoon, but I'd have to rewatch the cartoon to see if it comes like flooding back to me or whatever.
And have you had like, because the Turtles never really have gone away. They've lasted through multiple generations, through just like not just the comics, but multiple other TV shows, adaptations, movies. There was a movie in, I want to say 2006, 2007 that really brought me back to the Turtles. It was a CGI one. It was like done like almost not quite like a Pixar movie, but kind of that kind of style. And I remember really enjoying that. I've not seen it since, actually. Well, I probably watched it when it came out on like DVD the year after, but I don't think I've seen it since that time frame. But obviously, then there'd been multiple sort of reboots via TV. And there's also the Michael Bay style movies with Megan Fox and Will Arnett. And then obviously this year we've had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which I know you haven't had a chance to see, but any of the content between the sort of 80s cartoon and now, has any of that crossed your path at all, or have you kind of just not been
not to sit down and watch? No, just via like osmosis or whatever. Yeah, not in any deep involvement.
So in that case, then, I to give a little of my own history with this franchise, because if you're new to this podcast, we usually start by talking about our personal history with what the thing is. I think Turtles may have been my first fandom. It's the first thing I was passionate about that's a pop culture thing. There are pictures of me at the age of 4 and 5 wearing the Turtles masks and t-shirts and holding Turtles toys. I fucking love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it makes a lot of sense based on my age. I grew up sort of through Turtlemania. The biggest era of Turtles being popular, the cartoon. Obviously, we'll talk in a little bit about their origins, their comics and stuff. We'll cover a little bit of that. But the cartoon, the 87, I think it was, cartoon, is obviously a huge deal. And was a huge deal at the time. And I fucking ate that shit up. To the point, though, where, because it's so different from the movie, the comic book, but the TV show, is the cartoon from the 80s is very colourful and very kid-friendly. The comic's quite dark and grim and gritty and brutal in places. And when I saw the movie, which I was very excited for. Did not get to see in cinemas, though, sadly. That was something I had to see later on VHS. I just don't think I could... Of all the things I was able to convince my parents to take me to see when I was younger, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wasn't one of them. If I'm being completely honest with you. Which, you know what? Fair enough. I can't really... Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I could criticise them for that. That's fair. I remember being a bit surprised by the film when I sat down to watch it the first time, because it was different, very different tonally to the show, because I didn't understand the show had come from a comic, I don't think, because I would have only been, I'd have been young. I've been younger than 10, I assume. And I was just like, this is so different. I really liked it. Loved it, in fact. Watched it a bajillion times. This is one of those VHSs I pretty much wore out sort of films. And as I got older, I kind of fell out of interest in the franchise. Like I said, I didn't really come back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles until that 2007, I think, animated movie, which then got me to follow the next next Nickelodeon series they did on it. And then, obviously, I persevered through both Michael Bay Transformers movies in theaters. Not Transformers movies, sorry, Turtles movies. Michael Bay produced, I should say. He didn't direct those, I should clarify. They're just often referred to as the Michael Bay ones because they've got that tone. And then, obviously, recently went and saw and absolutely loved Mutant Mayhem, and it again has rekindled my love for this franchise and these characters. And I'm very fond of these characters, and I'm very attached to them. So that's kind of my history with it. I will say I haven't rewatched this movie since being a child, and was very nervous that this movie would not hold up. Like, really nervous. We were in for a shit show. I guess if we're going to do general opinions now, I'm relieved to say it's not terrible. I don't think it's a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but it is, for what it is, really, really enjoyable still for me. But a certain percentage of that, I have to acknowledge, is going to be nostalgia-driven, love of the characters. You know, there's a bias. So what I'm really curious, Chris, as a guy who's not particularly into the Turtles, going back and watching this movie from the 90s, which is dated in many ways, how did you find this film?
I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't. I'm not gonna. It's probably not gonna, be a big rewatcher. But I watched it knowing it was one of those, and this sometimes happens on Rewind reviews, where we watch a film that one of us hasn't seen, and they go, "If I'd have watched this at the right age, I'd have loved it." And right. I spent most of this movie, in terms of my reaction to it, going, "Oh, this will be a lot of people's Power Rangers." Like, for what Power Rangers was for me. Yes. Like, all those boxes that Power Rangers ticked for me, this would have ticked for other people. And I'm talking about Power Rangers as like a franchise, more the TV show than the movie, obviously. Mm-hmm. But
that movie though, they timed that just right, didn't they? They released that movie, the Power Rangers movie, in like the height of Power Rangers mania, and that movie was a big deal because it really felt like something special was happening, because like it was like, there's this thing that I love that a lot of the adults don't seem to get, and they've gone and made a big old blockbuster movie with it. Like, that felt important. Like, it wasn't. In the grand scheme of movie making, it wasn't. But I was very excited as a child by its existence. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think people that had watched the cartoon probably felt very similarly about this. Like, this is a live-action version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and like, it's fun. It's very easy to watch. I think it gets a bit slow, a little bit in the middle, and I think there are things that could definitely be tighter plot-wise. But all the beats work. I think April O'Neil is a fucking, like, that character is phenomenal for the time this movie was being made and the audience it was being made for. Correct. That's not talked about enough, I don't think.
Nope,
I'm not really engaging with it, but you never see April O'Neil on lists of like strong female characters from movies in the 80s and 90s, and she absolutely fucking should be. Like, it's stunning. She's got a go-getter attitude. She wants to do well at her career. She's strong. She fights back. She's never the damsel in distress. Like, I think
she doesn't just immediately buckle to the first handsome guy that winks at her. Like, she,
no.
Casey Jones has to work to win April over. She's not just gonna, like, do you know what I mean? Sort of like, oh well, this is a guy that likes me. I guess she's very independent about it, and when he won't do something for her, she's like, well, fine, I'll do it myself. Like that, yeah.
But she's also never. A worse version of this movie has her being captured at the end, and the Turtles having to, she's never the damsel in distress. Honestly,
I'm fairly certain the Michael Bay produced ones, the first one does that though with Megan Fox, which is upsetting. But yeah, carry on.
Probably, and that wouldn't surprise me. This movie, the writing of April O'Neil and the performance as well, is way more modern than I think anyone appreciates. Like, it's insanely ahead of its time, April O'Neil. And so I was really taken by that. That was probably my favourite element of the film. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
So let's talk about the origins of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I think to understand this film, I think people have to be aware of where this comes from, because this film, I imagine, is a bit confusing for some people, because there's one part goofy slapstick comedy, like there's a pizza landing on Splinter's head with a comedic like splat sound effect. But also, there's like some really dark stuff in this movie. Like, the rat gets his ear cut off. Like, the way Shredder meets his end is pretty brutal. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you go like, geez, like, is this a kid's movie for sure? So the reason for the tonal dissonance, for those who aren't aware, is the guys that came up with the Ninja Turtles, who did it independently. They funded it themselves. They printed it with their own money. They borrowed from like their uncle. Actually, I think they borrowed some money from their uncle, printed a run, got enough money back to pay him back and print more, and they kept printing their own comic, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they were offered the cartoon deal, and that kind of exploded. And then, that's what we were. So we were talking about Eastman and Laird, who the original creators. The comic, though, was a parody of Daredevil. Although, I think few people have said this in the past, but I'll reiterate this. Parody is a strong word, because what's amazing about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in their original incarnation, and I've read some of those early comics, they're fucking brilliant. They played it straight. It wasn't parody with a wink and a nudge. It was, this is ridiculous, but we're going to completely play it down the middle, as straight as we can, and you can find the absurdity funny if you wish. And, the idea that, so for those who don't know, their origin in the comic is that when the canister that gave Daredevil his powers of chemical that hit him in the face, it then rolled down into the sewer, and that's where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come from. Obviously, there are tons of then other parts of the parody. Like the heroes, the Turtles' mentor is called Splinter. Obviously, the guy that mentored Daredevil was called Stick. So that's quite good. Daredevil's crime syndicate that he fights are called the Hand. So, of course, we have the Foot, or the Foot Clan. It's not an accident. That's what they're designed to be. So this film is really interesting, because I think this film is the only adaptation of the Turtles I've seen since, or I'm aware of, since the comics, that haven't winked and nudged at the absurdity of it. I mean, even the recent movie Mutant Mayhem, which I fucking loved. It's a great, great film. That's very aware how absurd it is and leans into that in a way that is sort of playing on it. But you could forgive someone for not understanding that this is trying to be funny. You could forgive someone for watching this movie and going, well, this is all very serious, isn't it? Even though it's patently stupid. Like, it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And full of more quips than a Marvel movie.
Yes, the quips are a problem. I don't mind a few quips. But, yeah.
There's too many quips.
Way too many quips. Way too many quips. And the hit rate on whether they're funny or not isn't great either. But the movie does derive a lot of comedy from how absurd it all is. So, like, when the Splinter rat, the young one, jumps at the guy's face, and then he fights back with the sword and takes off his ear, that is absurd. It's ridiculous. It looks insane. It is insane. Splinter learning how to do karate by watching his master and doing it from the cage, that's insane. That's so silly. Raphael putting on a trench coat and a hat and acting like that's enough for him to be able to go out in public, that's fucking ridiculous. It's insane. Of course, you'd look at him for 2 seconds. Are you a giant turtle? Yeah, obviously. It's not a good disguise. The movie doesn't point that out. So while the movie's not hitting very hard on the quips and the jokes that lie in that, they're not great. Where the movie really made me laugh was all that stuff. Just the subtle, like, was that a turtle in a trench coat? Yeah, I guess it was. Like, all that stuff. Mwah, beautiful, very funny. So yeah, that was my big takeaway. Was I was really surprised that it was funny, but it wasn't funny in the ways that it feels like it's trying to be funny. Those often fell flat. What actually made me laugh was all of the sort of absurd stuff, not even acknowledged that way, just shot like a dramatic film. Yeah. So that's my rant about that.
No, it was all brilliant. So, it like you say, a slight inconsistent tone, but so a good example of that is, like you were saying with the Daredevil thing, the foot is played as a joke. That's never played as a joke here, but that's what makes it funny.
Right. Exactly.
The fact that this organisation is called the Foot.
Yeah. Right. And it's there's no point is anyone they're treated completely seriously. And that is the joy of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Is like it is a deliberately absurd, silly world that that often takes itself so obscenely seriously. Especially the original Mirage comic run, like those first 15 issues before Eastman and Laird stopped working together, because they got sick of each other. So they started. So originally they were working on the comics together. Like, literally, it wasn't like one guy writing, one guy drawing either. They were literally writing stuff, then handing it over to the other to adjust, and then sending it back. And the same with the drawings. They were drawing and then giving it to the other guy, and he was drawing with them, and they were working together. It was like two friends working in a basement, And then at a certain point, when it all blew up, it got a bit much, and they stopped working together as much, and then they were getting annoyed at some of each creator had a very different vision for the Turtles, I think, and they started to like erase each other's pages and do other stuff, and they kind of fell out. And over the years now, Turtles stuff tends to either be from one or the other, as we've gone on. In recent years, I think it was the Toys That Made Us brought the two guys back together, which I think is really sweet, and
nice.
that was a really nice moment. They saw each other again, and they talked about their dreams of they were going to have two separate offices that had a little window to pass paper through, and they never got to do that because they fell out before that happened, and it's like weirdly tragic. But they've sort of collaborated a little bit recently, and their collaborations recently actually led to arguably what is now the most famous Turtles comic book, The Last Ronin, which is a very dark tale. Basically, very quickly, it's like the Dark Knight Returns of the Turtles comic books, where it's like a slightly. It's set in the far future, and all the Turtles and Splinter but one are dead, but you don't know which one it is because he has all the weapons of his brothers, and it's just a revenge thing, and you don't know initially which turtle it is that's doing it because he's not wearing a coloured mask. Wow. And it's really dark. It's really good. If anyone hasn't read The Last Ronin and you're a Turtles fan, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go read that. It's really fucking good.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it so much. It's great. And a little bit predictable, I think, which turtle it is, in my opinion. But it doesn't take away from it. Really good. And I won't say here in case for someone else it's not. But I think it's the most interesting choice. Is the one you think would be the most interesting person to do that with is the one. Like, it's not that hard to figure out. But yeah. So yeah, it's really the backstory of this is interesting. And the more I learn about their origins and stuff, the more this movie sort of makes a lot of sense, because it's like fighting between wanting to represent the cartoon, which was very kid friendly, very goofy, very colourful, and this gritty Daredevil parody, that was very bloody and very, serious. And then this film is this like weird amalgamation of the two. And I would argue that a lot of people could watch this and not enjoy that element. Find a pizza splat sound effect while it lands on Splinter's head to be not in line with some of the darker scenes in this movie. Like, how do I take this scene seriously if I had a cartoon splat sound effect in the previous scene? But I think they get away with it. I don't know. How did you feel about the tone? Because obviously for you might not have even been aware of the darker origins of the comic. So how did that work for you?
No, I thought the tone was fine. But I thought it was quite consistent, really, because whilst I guess the scenes that needed to be atmospheric, were atmospheric. The fight scenes were very as enthralling as they could be for a 1990s movie, where you've got there's people in costumes, I take it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So, and I guess, again, in my head, I was drawing a real line with Power Rangers, which, do you know what I mean, would do darker, not, arguably, atmospheric, let's say. And all the foot stuff when the villain's revealed and the backstory there and all that stuff in this is quite dark and quite serious. But, it'd be the same when Lord Zed was going to take over the world or, whatever. So, yeah, I just didn't find that jarring.
Even with sort of the much goofier, because the Power Rangers in their off moments weren't, weren't as goofy as these guys are in their off moments. I don't think. Well, I guess
I think
Bulk
they
and
could
Skull.
be. If you think about if I was going to say, if you think about Bulk and Skull, and they were obviously, they were in pretty much every episode, and were usually the B plot of the episode. The humour and the slapstick here is the B plot of the movie. You know what I mean? So it just didn't bother me.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really fun. I think the cast do a great job. For those unaware, so there are, as Chris just mentioned, there are guys in suits providing the physicality, and then all but one of them are then voiced by someone different. They've got so that each turtle has two actors bringing them to life. The person on set on the day, usually a stunt guy or a martial artist, but yeah, there's actors and then there's there were stuntmen too. The only one who did both the physical work as the turtle and provided the voice was Josh. Is it Pais? Pais? I never know how to pronounce that. But yeah, Josh Pais, who plays Raphael, gave the distinct sort of Brooklyn accent performance that stuck clearly. Because then when they went to record the lines properly, because obviously you can't hear anything from inside those suits because they were animatronic. And they were like motors in there moving, and their heads were completely blocked. So any dialogue was so muffled and like lost under the sounds of the motors moving those mouths that you had to redub it all, unfortunately. But yeah, it's the joy of practical effect, I guess.
I thought those fight scenes though looked great. I think they held up.
Yeah, they really do. I was pleasantly surprised by that. I thought the fight scenes, because those suits look awful to move in. They look really difficult to move in. They look hot. They look cumbersome. They move pretty spryly. So credit to the stuntmen and the actors. I should name them actually. David Foreman was Leonardo. Leif Tilden played Donatello. And Michaelan Sisti played Michelangelo physically. And they all actually got to cameo in the movie too. A little bit of sneaky trivia in before the trivia. All four of the actors that played the Turtles physically got to be in the movie in another way. So John Pais, who plays Raphael, was the passenger in the back of the taxi cab, right after Raphael hops over the cab. Michaelan Sisti, who plays Michelangelo, is the delivery man that brings the pizza to Michelangelo in the sewers, which I think is fun. Leif Tilden, who plays Donatello, is the foot messenger that meets April in the subway station. And David Foreman, who plays Leonardo, plays a gang member in the warehouse during Casey's fight with Tatsu. So yeah, they're all present, which is nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Fair play to them.
How do you think the movie aged then in terms of, well, just in general actually, because like not just the jokes, but also like was there anything inappropriate, but also like do you think the special effects hold up? How do you feel in general it aged?
Yeah, I didn't love what am I not up to date with my Sony payments. I was uncomfortable for that line.
Yeah. There's a few.
So sorry, say that again.
There's a few lines like that. There's the one where he misunderstands what's the line? It's like, oh, I wrote it down. 1 second, let me find it in my notes because it's really appropriate for here. Because he misunderstands claustrophobic.
Oh, yeah.
But the joke doesn't even work.
No, because it's not... Find it.
Yeah, I'm going to find it.
I don't want to misrepresent.
No, but I definitely wrote it down because it was like, what? I wrote so many notes for this. I don't know why. Where is it? So he's trying to say that Casey Jones is claustrophobic, and Casey Jones says something like, "I don't even like guys," or something like that, or "I've never even kissed a guy." I think he says that's what he says. "I've never even kissed a guy," and then. Weird gay joke that just physically doesn't work. And then I just wrote the word claustrophobic to remind myself. I didn't write the actual dialogue, which is disappointing. But yeah, that's basically the gag. And then he's like, no, it means... But that joke doesn't physically work, though, because I've never even kissed a guy. Well, if you're homophobic... Yeah, so
here you go. So I've got the transcript. So
please, yeah.
Donnie says, "You're claustrophobic," and then Casey says, "Do you want a fist in the mouth? I've never even looked at another guy before." And the reason it doesn't work is because claustrophobic is presumably, the joke is, it sounds like homophobic, but that response is homophobic. So it's like it doesn't make any sense. It's not even it doesn't even function as a joke.
No, because it's as if he understands what he said to mean you're gay. But obviously, homophobic is the opposite. So it's just it's. So not only is it inappropriate and does it not work, and it stinks of gay panic, like it just as a joke, just as sentences said, it doesn't make sense. Like it just physically doesn't work. Although annoyingly, one of my favorite jokes in the entire movie follows that moment, which is the pizza funeral. When they find a pizza that's gone moldy and they just drop to their knees and start doing like a funeral march as they put it to rest. It's fucking great.
Yeah. I enjoyed one of my favourite subtle jokes was when Casey is chopping up veg and he appears to be using like a weapon, like a samurai sword.
He's using Leonardo's sword. It's so good. He's using Leonardo's sword to chop like celery or something. And that's another one of those moments where that is just ridiculous. That is visually ridiculous. It's an insane thing to do. Yeah. It was great. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the special effects, haven't aged amazingly, but I think the benefit of doing practical is, while they're not perfect, and there's like a weird moment when you can see that the actor inside Leonardo opens his mouth so wide in one of the scenes, you can see through the mouth to the face of the actor. So I don't know if that was visible in the original standard definition versions, but the HD version that's available now via like Paramount Plus, you can absolutely see the actor's face inside of his mouth, which would have given me utter nightmares as a child if I'd noticed that. But I think mostly I think the suits look pretty good, right? They move well. They often sync up pretty well to the lips moving. With the sound. I don't know. I don't know if any of that stand out as being problematic or not working to you.
No, I mean, look, I mean, one of those things of it looks like a movie made in 1990. Like you just can't. I nothing that makes me, take points away from the movie at all, because it I think actually, like I say, the fight scenes hold up really well. Sorry, I hit my wind guard. The fight scenes hold up really well. The suits look like suits, but they're gonna. And actually, the fact that the movement is so good, and sometimes it feels like the dialogue is a bit out of sync with the way the costume is moving and that sort of stuff. But it's all forgivable for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't always sound like it's coming spatially from the turtle that's speaking. Sometimes it sounds like someone's hit play on a voice recording somewhere else. Like every now and then it doesn't quite feel like it's coming from that play. And I think that might be a result of like someone speaking into a microphone quite directly, which never sounds the same as someone talking from a different position in the room. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure,
like when you're recording the sound of a room and two people talking in it, it's not the same as that really crisp, almost like loud, like you're so close to it, where you're so close to the source of the sound. Whereas when you're in a wider room, it just doesn't quite sound that way. So it feels like almost they should have had the actors do the dialogue in the scene with the helmet on, and then do the scene again. Oh no, because it's not the same voice actor as it is the physical actor. Yeah. Maybe do the scene again with the voice actor stood in doing the dialogue, just so you can get a clean sound recording of what it would sound like if it was actually said in the room. And that might have solved some of those problems. But like, it's a pretty minor issue. You wouldn't notice it. Like, there's like two scenes in the whole movie where your brain might go, oh yeah, like, but it's not really a problem, I don't think. No, I don't think so. I don't think anything. I think it's also, the aesthetically, the type of cameras used and stuff. It just, I felt nostalgic watching this movie, even though I'd never seen it before, because I just felt nostalgic for movies of the time and movies like this, So, and I think that all still works and does it age it? Probably, but in a good way. Yeah, and I think, it's shot surprisingly well. I mean, this was a low budget movie. This was like the comic. They sort of made this movie without the backing of a big studio and then tried to sell it to a studio after the fact. And that's nuts. And, it was made on a very lean budget. I think it was like 10 million or something. I can't remember. I had to look. I had it up earlier, but it's somewhere in the truth. So we'll come back to that, I think. But it was made on an extremely lean budget. And that's why this one really does have the tone of the comic, where Eastman and Laird were involved, whereas the sequel feels more like an adaptation of the cartoon. We'll come to Secrets of the Use at some point, I think, or Secret of the Use, because that's an interesting movie.
Well, Dan, done it again. You know, all I'm saying is, done it again. Last week, Clerks, first part of a trilogy, arguably. This is the first part of a trilogy.
All I'm going to say...
My choice next, that's all I'm saying.
All I'm going to say to that is, please don't make me watch the third one again. I saw it once as a kid and never again. The third movie from this franchise is fucking awful.
All I'm,
yeah.
Just because you didn't do it, you didn't take the bait and make it a trilogy, doesn't mean I won't.
That's fair. You're welcome to. I like the threat of a trilogy looms over us continually. I think this one is like you can tell they put a lot of thought into where the camera went. They often and some of the choices were for budget, right? It was too expensive to show the initial fight, but born from sort of restrictions was a really fun way to introduce the Turtles. The opening scene of this movie, when you barely see them, you just get the glimpse of them looking up from the sewer, and then Wrath's scythe hits the light, and then you hear the fight, but when the light comes back on, they're already down and the turtles are already escaping, and you hear the voices and you heard the sounds, but you didn't see them. What a fucking great way to introduce the characters. Like, genuinely.
It's really effective. Really effective.
And it's shot brilliantly. Like, it really is. Like, from a filmmaking perspective, it's actually really, really well put together. The fight scenes, you always know where everyone is in space, and, as the fight unfolds, they have some really interesting angle choices. Yeah, this movie could have been... Like, ultimately, this is kind of like a movie for kids, right? Like, you don't need to put this much effort into the visuals. There's some really good stuff in here. Like, the framing on that shot, like, of Leo waiting for Raph to wake up in the bath when he's just slumped over in the chair. That's a great shot. That's a powerful image. Framed brilliantly with all that negative space around him. It's great. Like, yeah. Why is this movie going so hard? I don't know. It doesn't need to. I would not be sat here if the visuals were simple, going, oh, the visuals were so pedestrian, that wouldn't be a concern.
Yeah. The shot of when they get confirmation Splinter's alive and they all line up in the forest and they say, right, we're ready to go back. Like, yes. So good.
Yeah, it's a great scene. So one thing you picked up, I'm going to pick up on from what you were talking about at the beginning. You talked about that you thought maybe the pacing in the middle. I would like you to elaborate on that further, but very quickly, just to cover for me, I actually think the pacing of this movie is pretty perfect, and I actually love that sequence in the middle. Like, it's my favourite section of the movie. It's where all the best character work happens. It's where all the most interesting things happen between the characters. So I wouldn't cut that for the world, because I think my investment in the last act of the film really depends on that sort of cabin sequence, if you will, which is what I think could be the source of your feeling it slows down in the middle for a bit, because obviously that's a section of the movie where we're not progressing the plot massively. There's not a lot of action. Am I wrong? Is that the section that you were thinking of, or is it something different? How did you feel about that?
I actually thought it more almost in when you kind of got although it's a wicked fight, you've got the fight at April's,
right? And
the Splinter's gone, but they don't rush to try, and it sort of meanders with what they're going to do about it. I think the crux of it is it's not so much even specific scenes; it's the fact that you've got a group of villains and a group of heroes. And the movie does an awful lot of making sure those two don't meet for ages. I suppose they meet with the henchmen, but specifically the big main villain, I can't remember his name. The Turtles don't really come across him. The Turtles don't come across him until the end. Mm-hmm. And fundamentally, what crimes is that group committing well, they're just committing random crimes all over the city, and we see a bit of that at the beginning, and then it's just like, oh, well, that's still happening, I guess. You know, the stuff about Casey following the kid there, and all of that sort of stuff. Just Casey in general, like for a point, there are points early on where you're like, is Casey going to be a villain? Is he a good guy? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of stuff. So it's more maybe the middle's the wrong bit. It's more maybe just before that sort of. Act 2 turning point, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the Act 2 and Act 3 turning points have a lot of pieces moving around a chessboard sort of scenes. So like there's the scene I think I noticed it in is once they get back, they don't come back to the city and then immediately go after Shredder. They come back to the city, go back to the sewers, and they spend the night there. And while that's happening, the kid goes off to see Splinter. Casey follows him. And then Casey comes back.
There, and no one's asking how the kid knew what was down there.
What do you mean? Like what was in the?
Like how did the kid? Yeah, how did the kids know? How did the kid know about the sewers again? That they were living there or whatever.
The Foot Clan found them earlier in the movie because they got Splinter, didn't they? The Foot Clan figured out. So he was in the
what I'm
Foot
saying
Clan.
is, yeah. So why are none of those characters going, hey, kid, how the fuck do you know? Is that not... That's my point. How are they not suspicious of him?
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. How do you know where we live, kid? How did you find our hideout? Yeah, you're right. Yes.
How are they not going, dude, kid, what are you doing here? Because the only people that know about this are the bad guys.
Yeah. That's a really good point. No, I hadn't thought of that. That's a bit of a... It's not quite a plot hole, more of a plot speed bump. But yeah, you're right. It's weird no one questions it. You're right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But there's that section. There's that section on that end. And then before they go away, before the April fight, there's that section where Splinter's been kidnapped, but they're holding position because basically they don't know where he is. And Leonardo doesn't think it's wise to just run off into the streets gung-ho without a plan and without knowing where they're actually going. So he's saying, let's wait for April to dig up their location as a journalist so we can be tactical and hit them. And Raphael disagrees. And it's what leads to one of the bigger conflicts. I don't mind the first one so much because I think that really sets up Leonardo and Raphael's conflict. And they're always, historically... through a lot of adaptations of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, those two coming to blows is a recurring theme because they both have such different approaches.
But it's not really it's not consistent. I don't think they make enough of it in this movie. Like once that's resolved in the bathtub, that's just gone, and it's resolved like halfway through the movie.
Right,
just another example of like slightly odd pacing. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
I thought that was going to be a thread running throughout the whole movie, and then they'd resolve it, and they sort of. I'm just looking now. Yeah, they resolved that about 50. There's like another half an hour to go. I suppose it's fairly late then. But
yeah, you're right. It's 2/3 through the movie. It's an hour and a half movie though. It's a brisk movie, so it's like that's 2/3 of the way through the movie rather than the end. I agree. I think it would have been. It's an easy fix too. They get back to the city, and instead of all this stuff of like the kid goes back to see Splinter, Casey follows him. We don't need any of that. How about they get back to the city and Leo. And Raph says to Leo, "Okay, where are we going to hide while we wait to find out where they are?" And Leo goes, "No, Raph, we're gonna take a little leaf out of your book on this one. Let's go, let's find them." And then you just get a montage of them, on the streets, knocking out various Foot Clan soldiers, questioning Foot Clan soldiers that are out committing crimes to try and get the location because they're not going to be completely stupid about it, but they are going to be more forward-thinking than before. And it's Leo giving in a little bit to Raph. And then when they get there, Leo's like, let's go. And then Raph holds Leo back and says, no, let's take a page out of your book now and plan before we go into where they are. Let's not just barge in through the front door. Let's be tactical. And then you can show that they both learn a bit from each other. And then it would feel like it connected a bit more throughout through the whole movie, rather than just being a thing that gets resolved in the bathtub and then not mentioned again.
Yeah,
and then it solves the problem. And then it solves the problem of the back and forth as well, which I don't like.
Because, like you, I love the cabin stuff. I think there's some great stuff there.
Yes.
I think there's some good humor. I love that montage. There's another montage I really loved. Oh, the the Raphael, is it, who's getting when he gets attacked, and they sort of they cut between the other three turtles having japes and laughs with April to him getting attacked, and they sort of parallel each other. And again, it's another example of the attention to detail in the shot, and I know it's obviously that must to some degree come from the script, but that also comes a lot from the attention to detail in the framing, editing, and shooting of this movie. That being so funny, and the parallels being so distinct and clear. I really enjoyed that montage too.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think there's a lot of really good, just like visual storytelling in the film throughout. I think there's shots that speak 1,000 words. I don't need Leonardo to say how much he regrets telling Raph that they didn't need him. You see him over his bathtub and the way he's slumped, the way it's shot, the way it's lit. It's just, it's communicated in like an instant. He does eventually say it when he has the conversation with Raph later. I shouldn't have said that, but it's not needed. You could have gotten away without even having that line of dialogue. Obviously for a kids movie, it's nicer to spell it out, but like the movie was so effective at communicating it visually. And I mean, that middle point in the movie is really incredible because it's like the defeat, it's palpable. I remember as a kid feeling like, how did they get out of this? Raph's fighting for his life. April's lost her home, her job. The clan have splinter. They're fleeing the city. It's just like, shit, how do we get out of this one? Like, and that's even as a kid, I was like, I don't understand how we fix this. Like, this has all gone so wrong. It's like it's the ending of Empire Strikes Back, but it's in the middle of the fucking movie. You know what I mean? It's a great a great low point before they sort of regroup and come back to it. And I love all that stuff. It's really well done. You really feel it.
Yeah, it's very well put together. What do you think of Casey and April's relationship? Do you think they do enough?
Oh, well, that was my question for you. That was literally my next question for you, because I mean, look, for me, I'm not like I think a movie like this, a thin love story is fine. Like, it doesn't bother me that it's not the most deep love story in the world, because it's not the focus of the movie. It's not a romantic movie necessarily. I'm okay with there being a love story. It doesn't need to be the focus. So I'd say this is a fairly simplistic one. It's not a lot of depth to it, but it works for me. But I don't require a lot from it. But you're kind of, you're all. I say this a lot. I'm sorry if you're getting tired of hearing it, Chris. But for listeners who might be new, Chris is kind of the romantic of the two of us when it comes to films and TV. He loves a good love story. So I was very curious how you felt about it, because to my eyes, this seemed not particularly deep, and maybe that you someone interested in that sort of thing might feel it needed more. I was okay with it. I thought it was just right for what this is, but I'm curious as to whether you wanted more from it or not.
No, I liked it. I didn't like him pushing her down in the chair to give her the massage. Like, I know she then liked the massage, but I didn't love that.
No, creepy 90s, nonsense.
Yeah, it's not aged well.
Nope.
But in general, I thought the chemistry between the two actors was very good. I'm very intrigued as to why Judith Hogue, or whatever her name is, didn't come back for the sequel. I don't know if you've got that in the drift.
We will talk about that.
Sorry, I was very dismissive when I said, or whatever her name is. I didn't mean that. Like I say, I think she's probably the best bit of the film.
She's really good. She's really good.
She's so good. She's incredible. And the writing, that character, April O'Neil's character in this film, like we've already praised. But I think that's kind of why the love story works, though, linking into that, because the chemistry between the two actors is very good. Even when when they first get to the house and they fight, and they walk off separately and slam the doors, it felt like an old married couple fighting. It felt like a married couple bickering. Like, it didn't. Do you know what I mean? There was like, I thought the chemistry of the characters in that sense was pretty instant. I think they slowly win each other round and have each other's back, and it never becomes even. Again, they keep the consistency with April's character. Even at the end, it's, well, you just shut up and kiss me. She's the one telling him to kiss her, So, yeah, no, it definitely works for me.
We've talked about this quite a lot, actually, but not intentionally, but by accident. This idea that there was a trend, particularly, I think, through the 90s and early thousands, and it was, I think, a result of shows like Moonlighting, which had this idea of a will they, won't they, where the couple almost at times didn't seem to get on at all. They were very bickery, and then it would turn into a romantic thing. And I think that trend is fine. The only problem with it is sometimes some films would go too far in making them angry at each other in the bickery scenes, that then you wouldn't believe the romantic scenes. Whereas this, the sheer charm of both these actors, I'm not sure how it works on the page. I've never read the script, but if I was taking a guess, I would say it doesn't play nearly as well. I would say those arguments are so legit on the page that you'd be surprised they kiss at the end, because it really seems like they don't like each other. Whereas you put these two very charming people in the roles, and this is not a one-way street. Obviously, Judith Hogue, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. She's obviously fantastic in this role, but let's not, Elias Koteas, who plays Casey in this, also on the receiving end of that, like giving as much as he's taking in terms of their performance, and as a result, you buy that they're charming each other while they're arguing because of how these two actors are playing it. And again, it's very lucky they cast this the way they did, because I think if they didn't, then that really doesn't work. And it's particularly noteworthy that whole section at the sort of, at the barn outside of the city, that any interaction they have during that sequence, other than the forced massage, which I agree with you, I felt a bit uncomfortable with, but sometimes you've just got to sign of the times, I guess. You've just got to sort of grin and bear it with some of these older films. Like that thing from Short Circuit when he kept pulling her to the ground to protect her. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's just, something that was considered funny, I guess, at the time. I don't know. But other than that, I think that they really shine in those scenes, and it really does come down to those two performances. And I think both actors deserve fucking rounds of applause for pulling it off, because that is tricky. That is very tricky.
Yeah, and like you say, I don't think that's on the page. I think in the hands of lesser actors that doesn't work.
I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you there. I think it's. I think I'd be surprised to read the script and be like, oh no, it still works. I think it would not be as good at all.
I think, and a sign of the times, this kind of era of superhero movies, 80s, 90s, was the era of we can explain the origin in a flashback scene and don't need an origin movie, which obviously it then, late 2000s became more about origin stories. But I think the origin story of both the Turtles, the rat itself, Splinter, and Splinter and the bad guy as well. I thought all of those origin stories and flashbacks were done well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's dead simple. The Turtles one, they're both quite, actually, they're both, because even though the Splinters is more dramatic, it's still goofy as hell. Like when he's like when the guy's doing martial arts and the camera pans over, and it's the rat in the cage doing a kick. Like it's just that is ridiculous. That is an insane thing to see with my eyes. You know what I mean? And I always remember that image. Yeah. An image of this movie that will, be in my brain until the day I die. Will be that. That and the young turtle getting up and saying its first word. That's a really fun visual too. So yeah, both flashbacks have some really fun stuff in them. And also they don't apologize for themselves. They're ridiculous. Origins, they're silly. That's fine. It doesn't matter. There was just a chemical they fell in, and it made them mutants. Fine. Right. The rat watched his master do martial arts and learnt martial arts that way. Fine. And I tell you, that confused me as a kid, because I believe in the animated show, the master and Splinter are the same person. He turns into a rat. Rather than the rat learning from him. So that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
So one thing I will say that doesn't age well about this movie is all the lingo. Oh, the lingo. Late 80s cool, radical, cowabunga, bodacious. Oh, kill me now. I know a lot of those phrases are like tied
cowabunga's
to the
only at the end. to be fair.
True, but that, I mean, just that kind of language in general, and I know that's a part of the Turtles, especially from that era, but it's a lot, and it's every fucking sentence. it's a lot. I don't know. Did it bother you? I found it a bit grating.
It rolled in with the quips, to be honest with you.
Right.
So yes, but I would have said that as, you know, in terms of the quips.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of things that didn't age brilliantly, I don't and never do ever in any interpretation of the Turtles enjoy Turtles thinking April O'Neil is attractive. It's weird. I don't like it. It doesn't need to be in there. I don't want to hear the Turtles talking about what a babe she is. I don't want it. Never.
I didn't find that as... I mean, you know, at one point it looked like they were going to try and... The way she was like, I'd like to thank one of you in particular, and he got all embarrassed and stuff. Like, that in a way was more uncomfortable to me than them thinking she was attractive.
Right. I mean, all of that's rolled into one for me, though. Any hint at the Turtles and April being... Any of the Turtles and April being, like, into each other, I always find that odd. Yeah, I don't like it. I never have, and I don't think I ever will. There's one moment where I was like, no, that's what the relationship should be. I think it's during the fight in her house, and Michelangelo backs the Foot Clan soldier up to a point where she can drop something on him or hit him on the head with something. And he says something like, thanks, sis. Or like, you get him, sis, or something like that. I think I wrote it down. Can I find it? In my mountain of notes.
I've still got the transcript up. Hold on.
I'm sure he says something like that.
Sis.
No?
So he says, a little to the right, a little to the left, one more time, a little bit more like that, and stop. Perfect. You're a natural, sis.
You're a natural, sis. There you go. So that line, like, to me, I was like, that's the relationship. Siblings. That's what the relationship should be. I think making it in any way romantic you're just raising more questions than you're ever going to be able to answer. I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you're playing with fire, doing that. Did you know in the wild turtles have spiral dicks?
Oh, Jesus!
Oh.
I mean,
1 second.
Huh?
1 sec. I've got a parcel arriving. 1 sec. I'm running away from the microphone. Hello.
I mean, I love the way he. I don't know if he can still hear me. But I love the way he talked about the film taking it too far and him not liking those links, and then talked about them having spiral penises. I don't think he can hear me.
I can hear you, Chris. I can.
He can hear me.
I can, and I'm back.
And he says he's ashamed, but he says he spends an unreasonable amount of time thinking about turtles and their spiral penises.
No, you know what it was? You know what reminded me of that? There is an old YouTube video that's quite famous, and it was like realistic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was the theme song.
Oh,
but it was like a cartoon. It was like a funny. It was it's not, but it was like pointing out all the real gross things that turtles do. And therefore, how like that it wouldn't be anywhere near as fun if they were realistic. Do you know what I mean? Like it was. I remember it being quite a funny video. It's an animated video. But I'm pretty sure that's where I learnt that fact. Let me see if I can still find it, so I can tell people who it is. I can tell what people where to find the video if they want to see it. But that's what brought that to my mind. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles realistic. Let's see. Scientifically accurate Ninja Turtles. It's on the Animation Domination webpage. It's got 11 million views. That's nuts. But yeah, it's interesting. It's really funny. Yeah, there you go. You should watch it. People should watch it. It's funny. Anyway, so I'm never a fan of that idea. I like the idea of it being more of a sibling relationship because that's sweet. Like, they I like that they have friends outside of Splinter. I think it's weird and creepy. They just live in a sewer with their essentially their like grandfather figure / mentor. I like the idea that they've got friends outside of that, and several versions of the Turtle suits have done that and done it well. So yeah, I'm always against it. Let's see other notes.
Yeah, that's
things
fair.
that don't involve spiral penises. Do we think the pizza
Please.
stuff was too much? I know that's like a famous thing. They like pizza, but it's like it does feel like they make a lot of references to pizza, like a crazy number of references. Was that okay?
Do you think? No, I didn't feel that at all. To be honest.
Oh. No.
Hold on. I've still got one sec. Where's the script?
Oh, are you about to do a check the
Yeah,
the
I'll do a little
numbers?
search.
Yeah.
Because also, but I know, whilst I've not seen the film, I know that in one of the, I assume, Michael Bay movies, the Pizza Hut tie-ins were insane. So, like, it's better than that.
Well, it's
So
funny you
apparently
said.
there
Well,
are
to be
12
fair, this is very like. To be fair, this is a lot of like Domino's branding. Like Domino's is everywhere in this movie.
Is Domino's the first delivery bloke? I saw
Yeah.
the Domino's box
Yeah.
later. So there's 3 mentions of the word pizza at the beginning when they're literally ordering a pizza.
Sure. Well, that's fair.
Then there's April and April's when they get to her saying, "You guys eat pizza. Did you say pizza? Yep, pizza." So that's the second pizza scene.
There's a pizza funeral. We know there's a pizza funeral.
And then
recall
it's the
that.
pizza funeral. And that appears to be it.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me.
So 3.
All right. You win this round.
So there's 3 pizza scenes, which to me feels enough. That's one of the sort of osmosis cultural things I knew, picked up by the culture, by the pop cultureness of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that
Sure.
I knew was that they love pizza.
Yeah, so I mean that's not really from the comics. It's more from the 90s, the cartoon. But yeah, I mean that was a weird. Now one day I want to look into that trend. That trend of the cartoon character loves a specific food, because that was a weird trend. Like Sonic loved chili dogs. That was his thing in the cartoons.
Popeye and spinach.
Popeye and spinach. Yeah, I feel like that was a weird little trend for a while. I'd have to look into it more to see if there are more examples. I'm sure there are. But yeah. I always find that strange. All right, yeah, okay, we got it. We got away with it. It just felt like, to me, like it felt like almost every other line was like a line about pizza. I was like, guys, your master has been kidnapped.
Well,
maybe give a shit.
certainly from what I could see on the transcript, there only seemed to be 3 scenes where the word pizza was said. At the very least.
Well, there you go. My parcel, by the way, that arrived, for anyone wondering, was a new phone case, because my old phone case got all scratched.
Well, there you go.
So I've got a new phone case. The only thing is, this doesn't give any screen protection. This is a fully back case, but I like one that has a screen protector. I didn't realise that when I ordered it. So I might have to buy a fucking screen protector for my phone now.
How bad then, out of interest, is the Pizza Hut stuff in the Michael Bay ones?
It's not great. It's pretty frequent. It's. I don't think it, on a scale of 1 to Power Rangers Krispy Kremes, it's somewhere in the middle. It's not the Power Rangers Krispy Kreme stuff, but it's fairly prominent. But it makes sense.
Still one of my favourite. Still one of my favourite elements.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I it's there, and you'll notice it. But it's no. I don't think it's any more egregious than the Dominoes of this, because there's a lot of Dominoes in this.
Right, okay.
Although the irony of this, in Pizza Hut actually had 20 million invested in a marketing campaign tied into this film, despite the fact that the product placement in the film was their rival Domino's.
Really? That's insane.
Because everyone just knew that everyone was going to be talking about pizza. Pizza was going to be the thing, because the Turtles ate pizza, and no matter how the movie performed, the Turtles and pizza are interconnected, and it made absolutely how often do you get a big budget movie where pizza is going to be said as a word that many times? Like, I definitely was like, maybe I could have a pizza tonight after watching this movie. So, like, I didn't end up having a pizza.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Pizza Hut put 20 million.
Are you going to have a pizza, Dan?
Well, so tonight we're having like a curry. So I might have a pizza tomorrow. But yeah, Pizza Hut engaged in the 20 million marketing campaign that involved advertising in print, radio, and television, and several rebate coupons. So I assume, clips from the movie, and then you get your pizza at Pizza Hut, that sort of thing. Fascinating. So yeah, that's fair. That's all fair. One thing I will say, and I don't know, I don't know if this is a complaint or not, but did you completely understand what it was they learned that allowed them to talk to Splinter Or was that just weird, vague hocus pocus that was just a bit like, eh?
They just learnt to. I just viewed it as meditate and get in touch with their sort of that side of things. Is that not the case?
Well, no, yeah, maybe. I genuinely like. I don't know.
Right.
That's the issue. I was like, I'm not sure what that is, like what it is they've learned that allows them to talk to a person from a distance. Like the movie doesn't really make it very clear, in my opinion, and I was kind of wondering if you felt the same way.
No, I thought they did, because there's all the stuff at the beginning where he even says, doesn't he? But although, isn't it? It's a different turtle that then finds him, because he sort of says, Splinter says at the beginning to one of them, I'm always there, I'm always here, and touches his head. But that's not the same turtle that then connects with him spiritually, is it?
The turtle that connects with him spiritually is Leonardo. It might be Leonardo that he does that for in the beginning. I'm struggling to remember that scene. Have you still got
I thought it was the one. I thought it was the one that was going off and sort of getting into
Raphael.
fights on his own, which isn't Leonardo.
Probably,
yeah.
no,
So I think
so,
he does that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. There's some weird edits in this movie, actually. Apparently,
So is it a different? We think it's two different turtles.
But yeah, if you're saying that's Raph, I'm
Yeah.
saying the other one is Leo. So that I think that is...
Yeah, because I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it comes in a scene where he's like, when he gets back from being out on his own, and he's like, "You've got to find other ways to release your."
Oh, that's definitely
anger
Raphael.
and all that
Definitely
stuff.
Raphael.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leo doesn't have any anger.
So, but I sort of just viewed it like there's a spiritual connection, and they utilized it in that moment. I guess was my interpretation of that.
Yeah, it's just a bit vague, and I kind of thought, like, for a movie that, like, you know, I guess it does ask us to just assume a lot. Like, it's like, there's mutant goo that turned them into mutants. Don't question it. Like, I guess spiritual connection through their practice of ninja skills is no different than the mutant chemical that made them big and talking in the first place. Like, the movie is asking exactly the same amount of just trust to just go, yeah, fine, go with it for both of those things. Maybe it's just because we'd recently watched the season 2 Korra finale where there's a bunch of random spirit shit happens that makes no sense, that I was going, huh. Maybe that's why my brain was in that mode, because I watched the Korra finale before I watched this movie.
Yeah, even then, when I just said about the spiritual side of things, like, I was like, is that the right term, or is that just from Korra, what I'm saying that?
Yeah. Some of my favourite moments in the movie, Mikey telling April to switch to decaf when she jumps. I love, one of my favourites. I love, these kids are really bad because they have cigarettes. Whoa, these kids are bad.
Two types, Dan. Two types.
Actually,
let's speaking of, let's talk about that sec. How do you think the news guy's kid of it all? How do you think that story, that arc, that storyline? Do you think that works? Do you think it doesn't? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think you need it, because I think one of the things about this movie is how evil what Shredder is doing is. He's literally corrupting the youth for gain. His group are not even committing crimes themselves. They have groomed children into doing it, and that is so fucking sinister. Like, and the way he does it is by being like, you come over us, it's so manipulative. It's like, yeah, don't worry about your parents. You can come for us, where you can play pool and skateboard when you're back at our clubhouse, but then you're doing crimes for me. It's very dark. And then as they get older, they get trained in fighting, and then they get brought into the Foot Clan proper, where they have to wear the full outfits and stuff. And then they're just like his minions, and it's like, oh, he's raising them young to be basically an army for him. It's really fucked up. And I think that the power of that, if that was just, we got glimpses of that's what Shredder was up to throughout the movie without any point of entry character, I don't think the true horror of what that concept is notable. But having a parent who's losing a child to it really lands home Shredder's villainy. Shredder, apologies if I've been saying Splinter this whole time. I may have been. I meant Shredder, obviously. Shredder, his plan is so devious that those scenes really help sell it, so that you're way more invested in seeing him toppled. Even though him and the Turtles barely meet beforehand, by giving him a really good villain plan, you're kind of creating a situation where you're invested in him being stopped. Yeah. So and those point of entry characters are good. They don't need to be too emotionally deep, and I think, I think they're just about right, because we don't get to know them that well, but we know them well enough that we understand the emotions involved. The fear that the parent has for their lost child, how lost the kid feels inside this criminal gang, and how uncomfortable that makes him feel, and the doubts he's having. I think it's all pretty executed well. I don't know. The fact that you brought it up makes me think maybe you weren't as sure. How did you feel about that?
No, I think it is. I think we needed maybe a scene of the dad being worried that the son had gone missing or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that sort of throwaway. I've had everybody out looking for you. Like, really? Well, you're not out looking for him now. You're responding to a fire. Like, so maybe we needed like a dad scene. I think the start, and also, like I said earlier, I have a big issue with no one questioning why he's down in the sewers, including April. She's literally a reporter. But yeah, other than those sort of...
Yeah, it does make April look unusually incompetent, because the movie does a really good job of making April look very capable at all times, and that is quite a funny omission that no one thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I think as an arc, maybe one extra scene to maybe establish the dad's worry might have landed it a bit better. I think that's true.
Yeah. But otherwise, I thought it was good.
I really like how they characterize all the turtles. I think Raph's temper getting him into trouble, Donnie being passive to the point of it being a problem because they're not doing anything. All of that stuff feels very true to those characters. They cut Michelangelo's arc, which makes me sad. But I enjoy Michelangelo and Donnie getting to essentially be comic relief. I think if all four turtles got like a big story, it might overpower the film a bit, might be a bit much. So focusing on the two that we do and giving them most of the sort of dramatic stuff allows the other two to be just, comedic value. Like Michelangelo is very funny. Like Michelangelo and Donnie, when Raph and Leo start fighting, and they're just like bail, and they just leave. They just walk out the room because they're just like, yeah, we don't want to. These two argue all the time. We don't want any part of it. That's really funny. So yeah, I think that's good. Although Michelangelo actually had an arc that was cut. So obviously Michelangelo spends a lot of the movie being the goofy comic effect guy. But apparently, in the original script, and they shot some of this too, he took a really dark turn after the fight at April's house. Losing Raph, not losing, but like having Raph out of the picture, that defeat and the loss of Splinter throws him into like a depression almost, where he stops being funny and he starts being really serious. And there's a scene that. There's two scenes that are left in the movie that they actually changed which turtle it is. So the scene where Raphael is on a cliff and he's yelling, "Splinter!" That was supposed to be Michelangelo taking a dark turn.
Oh, right.
And you can tell because you can see the weapon, you can see the nunchucks. They've just, because it's a dark scene, they got away with slightly recoloring the mask, and changing the voice, obviously, which is easier to do because it's all dubbed. The other scene that was changed there's a scene where we get a glimpse of Raphael during the montage fighting with a punch bag. The original version of that scene, it was a longer scene that involved Mikey hitting the punching bag and getting so enraged he destroys it. Like, it falls apart. And they cut it, changed it to Raph, because I guess they just wanted a cleaner story and maybe for Michelangelo not to take up so much screen time. So the moment when he makes the dumb joke about turtle wax, that was supposed to be the sign of him being himself again. So the reaction of Casey and April was actually... The Casey and April reaction was actually reshot, because the original version of it was them showing relief before laughing, which obviously doesn't work in the context of a movie where you've cut that plot. So instead, what we get is just he makes the joke and they laugh, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting to think that technically in the original draft of this, the only turtle without a real story is Donnie. Poor Donnie.
But you know what, though? I'm kind of glad they cut it, because if that was the resolution of that, I wouldn't have liked it if feeling like every Turtles character arc was wrapped up before the third act battle.
Right.
Which that would have been as well.
Yeah. Hey guys, everyone, do you want to go to the cabin and solve all our personal issues? Yeah, sure. Now we've done that, can we go back and fight the bad guy? Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, you're right. It would have felt weird.
Exactly.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Exactly.
So yeah. Just on other notes while we're here, unless you've got anything bigger to talk about.
No.
I've got a few smaller notes. I really love the scene where April asks them to hide. And we get to see how good they are despite their size at, skulking around in the house like they're not found. And you never see how they do it, but they vanish from places that it almost seems impossible for them to have vanished from. I love all that. Love all of that. I like the pizza being delivered via the sewers through the grate. That's great.
Yeah, that was good.
I like Splinter trying to meditate and the turtles dancing. That's also really fun. Gives a good sense of their sets up their personalities really quick, I think. And their like fun-loving, sort of happy-go-lucky approach. It's almost like it's worked what Splinter has done. He sort of sheltered them from the real world, so they're just fun-loving, and that's nice. I like that. I've covered that. I think we covered a lot of this stuff now, actually.
Sweet. Well,
April screaming at April screaming at Mikey and Donnie, but then them screaming back is genius. I laugh at that every single time. Yeah, it's good. Oh, there's a sequence where they're hanging out with April and they're just doing impressions and laughing.
I like that. I felt it was a bit early. Like she'd only just met them. Like she really accepts giant turtles talking to her really quickly. But other than that nitpick, I enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's really quick, but it does establish it very well, considering how quick it is.
Yes.
We should actually talk about the ending. I've just realised. Christ. Shredder and his demise. So he kind of dies out of his own hubris. Like he throws a knife at Splinter. Splinter going to catch the knife to protect himself, then lets go of the thing that's holding Shredder. So Shredder kind of dies by his own hand a little bit. And he falls into a like a trash compactor built into a truck. And then Casey comedically goes, whoops, and then crushes him to death.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the one moment in the movie I was like, I'm not sure the mix of these two tones works here. How did you feel about that?
Yes, I felt exactly the same because they've committed I don't think we've ever, obviously we've seen them attack to kill, especially with the turtles. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we didn't see them kill much, did we?
No, definitely not. No, they're not particularly violent considering the weapons they use. They're very like, we'll knock you out and move on sort of heroes.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the foot here.
Oh, sure, right, yes.
And Shredder himself. Did Shredder kill? Well, obviously he killed the guy. Didn't he kill Splinter's
master? Yes, and also in the original cut, he killed that kid to make a point. Which
Jesus, really?
Yeah, you know the kid that gets really injured?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the original cut he was dead. They added the sound of him breathing and gasping afterwards to show the audience he wasn't dead, but he was supposed to be dead.
Oh, God. Yeah, it was too much. It was too violent. You know what would have made it work a little bit better is if it wasn't Casey, as if it was one of his followers going, "Nah, we've definitely had enough of this guy."
Oh, that's good, because then you don't have to bloody a hero's hands. You know, they just get to. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but the fact that it was Casey and it was played as a joke, no, I didn't like that.
No, I would agree with that. I found some notes that we haven't covered actually, so I'm going to quickly run through some of these if that's okay. Shredder's entrance, completely badass. The way he shows up, he's so intimidating. I don't love this costume for him, if I'm honest. It's too fabricy. But also for him being, martial artsy at the end of the movie, you kind of want it. Like, you got to find a balance there. So, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite costume for him. I don't recall what his costume looked like in the second movie, but maybe it'll look better. Yeah, so we'll see.
He's in Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah. Sorry, I've given that away. But Shredder always comes back. Shredder never gone for long.
But But he got crushed, Dan. Did they explain that?
He did. Well, I don't remember if they explain it here, but in the comics, this is really funny. In the comics, he died in like issue 1 and was gone for ages, and then he came back with very little explanation. And I think since they've clarified, the plan was alien worms ate his body and then pooped him out a new one.
Jeez.
The comics were weird. The comics were really weird. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. The fight in the house, I noted down the line, "A fellow chucker, eh?" Because I just thought that was fucking gibberish, and I loved it. It's fucking the weirdest thing to say. Like, that's a thing. A bunch of like pop culture references that don't age well, just on the grounds of like, if a kid watches this today, when he says it's kind of like moonlighting, do you think they're going to understand what that reference is?
No, they're not. I got it. I thought it was funny, but no, probably not. But equally, I don't think you have to. I think that's fine. You know, there's a lot of films that don't play particularly close references to the references,
right? Or they play it smart,
close attention to the references,
or they play it smart and they do a reference that's so universal that like it'll never be a problem. Like, you can make a Star Wars reference in anything; people will always get it, because even people who don't see Star Wars or haven't seen Star Wars know Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember who it was recently that said, I won't watch Star Wars movies. I refuse to. Why do I already know the names of all the characters? Like, I'm offended that the movie is so culturally thing that like I've never seen a movie and I know what a Chewbacca is. Like, I can't remember who said it, but it was very funny. I know the premise was that they were doing insults alphabetically, right? And they were working their way through. But gack face and horse brain or hose brain, the fuck were these insults? It was weird. Just want to point out that whole sequence was weird. I like that Casey and Donnie got on, but I just found that whole throwing random, barely English insults at each other was odd. Casey Jones falling out the chair. Go on.
I've just looked it up, by the way. Like, the quote in the plot synopsis on Wikipedia just says, hold on 1 second. Oh, I've lost it again now. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong thing. Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
At a junkyard where the remnants of the Foot and Shredder's second-in-command, Tatsu, are hiding out, they are met by their master, who has been disfigured by the previous defeat. I mean, it looked like he was getting more than disfigured to me, but all right.
Yeah, 100%. That was great. I really enjoyed Casey falling out of the chair breaking. I don't know if that was planned or not, because his reaction is really good, but it's still a great moment, regardless of whether it was an accident and they caught it on film or if it's a real thing. I've always questioned that, though, because his reaction is so authentic. You know, when the hanging sort of chair breaks, he looks really surprised by it. I love being a turtle as a line after he does the thing where he hides his head in the shell. I think that's really fun. I love the whole Turtles fighting Shredder scene. I do think it's weird they all attack him one by one instead of together, but sure. And I think, very last moment, because it's weird, the cowabunga thing and that I made a funny thing, I'm not sure that works. Does that work?
What, at the end when he's like, I've always liked cowabunga?
Yeah, and then he's like, haha, I made a funny.
No, well, the thing with that for me, I was like, oh, cowabunga, that's another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing. They held off to the end of the movie to do it, so that was just
and they gave it to the character least likely to actually say it, because that's funny, I guess.
Yeah. So I thought that was actually quite a clever way of getting it in, maybe.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't sit right with me, because also it's not really making a funny. He's just saying a thing that people said at the time. So then he's like, I made a funny. I'm like, did you? But yeah. Overall, I love this movie. It's not a masterpiece. I would recommend it, but I would be wary if you're not a long-time Turtles fan. I do think, it's not aged perfectly. There are definitely going to be things that are not going to either sit right with you or just not going to work for you. But I still think this is a good watch. I think it holds up mostly. How do you feel?
Yeah, I would say so, for sure. I think it's an enjoyable watch. It's breezy, it's 90 minutes. It's some good 90s fun that I think, whether you remember the Turtles or not, you'll probably still feel nostalgia watching it.
Yeah, and as a bonus, it's currently on Paramount Plus, so Won't cost you
and
anything.
Freeverve as well.
Yes,
So you can watch it on
yeah.
Amazon for free as well.
Certainly in the UK. I never know, actually. I should always mention this. We talk about Freevee a fair bit now, but I always forget to mention, I don't know what Freevee's American lineup is like and if it's different. But in the UK right now, you can watch the Turtles, all three, I believe, Turtles movies for free via Amazon's Freevee service. It's just supported by ads. So it'll stop and play an ad every now and then, which I think is probably fine. So yeah.
Yeah, I watched. I looked at a clip to find to see whether the pizza was always Domino's, and I did that via Amazon because I don't have Paramount Plus on my laptop, and it looked like there were 6 ad breaks, so it's not even a lot.
No, that's not a lot really. Not compared to if you've watched it on TV.
No, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's a fucking miracle this movie got made, especially with its overly dark tone. And the choice to not put a colourful cartoon on the screen when that would have been the easy move money-wise, just to copy the successful cartoon. I really respect the choices they made on this to make it a bit different and separate it from the cartoon by honouring the comic. So yeah, thumbs up from me. Shall we do the thing, Chris?
Let's triv it up!
We're going to give you some trivia. Right, so when getting this movie into production, Mark Friedman, who is a longtime collaborator of Eastman and Laird, who make Turtles, he was the one who helped them get the show on the air, but he knew he would have to significantly alter the experience to the animated show. Therefore, an effort was made to make the movie stay as close as possible to the vision the co-creators presented in the original comic book. First story meetings, as one of their first story meetings, they brought in director Steve Barron, and he met Eastman and Laird, and they actually went through the comics, and he told them, that's the movie right there, sort of pointing at the comics. And the co-creators obviously liked him saying that, so then they brought on someone called Todd Langen to write the script based on that very simple premise of adapt the comics. One of the very earliest ideas, I think before they got to that, was actually to do the movie in a similar approach to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the actors would be interacting with animated turtles. But this idea was nixed very quickly, because I think, how do you explain that they're literally animated in a realistic world? You can't do the Roger Rabbit thing of, there's a Toontown where the Toons live, because then you're admitting to Toons not being the same as people, and it raises more questions than asks. I'm glad they didn't do that. That would have been bad.
Yeah, I agree.
The comics they adapted from the early origins are things like the rooftop battle, the sort of the little sort of we've been defeated vacation to the farmhouse, the battle with Shredder, all taken from the comics. And then from the 1980s cartoon, they borrowed things like the love of pizza, the coloured bandanas, and April O'Neil's role as a television reporter, because in the comic she's like a lab assistant. Rather than a reporter, so they borrowed a little bit from both, to be honest. But I'm glad that the thing from the cartoon of the turtles having different coloured bandanas stuck, because in the comics, the comic book was black and white originally, so you literally, unless you could see what weapon they were holding, you weren't always sure which turtle was speaking. And I remember even when I read them when I was younger, feeling not very confused, but often confused by that. You're really looking for context clues to see which turtle is saying which thing. So yeah, I prefer it this way. I'm glad that stuck in general through all the adaptations of the Turtles, having the coloured bandanas to help you identify who's who. So the movie was produced, as I said, with no studio backing. I mentioned this earlier. Shopped around through various distributors once it was made. Pretty much every single studio going at the time rejected this movie. Fox, Disney, Paramount, MGM, like everyone just went, no thank you. And ironically, one of the groups that rejected it was Paramount, who would end up acquiring the Turtles later on, years later, via parent company Viacom. So yeah, that's just kind of funny that they turned it down and then they ended up owning the property many years later. Some alternate casting for Casey Jones and April O'Neil. So for April O'Neil, there are some good names in here, but I think a lot of these names honestly would have been out on the grounds of price. I mean, even at the time. I mean, Nicole Kidman, Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Beals, Marissa Tomei, Melanie Griffith, Sean Young. I mean, Winona Ryder, Brooke Shields, like, this is a silly list. These were all a bit, I think, out of reach for the movie, and I think it worked out in the movie's favour that these ladies weren't able to do the movie, because as talented as all of those actresses are, I'm very attached to this performance. I think Judith Hoag does a really good job.
Yeah, I'm very glad it was her. I wouldn't even want to use the Rick and Morty portal to see any of those alternative takes.
No, I agree. Yeah, for those who are confused as what that reference is, obviously we talked in the past about like the idea of, would you watch the alternate version of the movie if you had access to like a Rick and Morty portal gun where you could go to another dimension where that's how it played out? I'm with you. I wouldn't change this for anything. And I think that's also true for Casey Jones. Some of the other actors involved in that were Johnny Depp, Keanu Reeves, Christian Slater, Lou Diamond Phillips, Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Brian Austin Green, Alex Winter, and River Phoenix, all considered for the role of Casey Jones. I don't think any of those would have done it for me, to be honest with you. I think Alex Winter, maybe, would have been okay. No, I don't see it. You know, I don't think any of those guys are right for that role, you know?
No, I'm very happy with who we got.
I think if you were doing a Last Ronin style movie where it's the Turtles but like, 30, 40 years on and they're mostly dead, and you want to do a Casey Jones, now, modern day, Keanu Reeves could probably do an older version of Casey Jones, like Casey Jones grown up. But I don't think young Keanu Reeves could have played young Casey Jones. I don't think he was right. I don't think he'd have been right.
No, and also I think that's too beat-wise. That's too similar to. I know he wouldn't be playing the turtle, but I think that's too similar to John Wick, isn't it?
You think there's a similarities between Casey Jones and John Wick?
No, I think there's a similarity between a dark movie about someone going out for revenge and assassinating a load of people.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I thought you were comparing the characters. You're right. The plots of those two projects are too similar. You're right. Correct. Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
Although he wouldn't be playing the turtle, I think that's probably too close a movie to...
No, I'm with you. That's right. So Robin Williams was a massive fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. And he was actually in a movie shooting the year before called Cadillac Man with Judith Hoag. And when she said she was going to be in the Turtles movie, he actually got her a bunch of comic books from his collection for her to sort of, read prior to going into production. Because the original Mirage run, despite having many reprints over the years, they made them in their basement. They were like 3,000 copies the first run. They didn't make a lot. So I think it's really neat that Robin Williams owns some of that stuff, especially at that time frame.
Yeah, for sure.
Big fan, clearly. I love that. That's adorable. So the film is set in New York, but they couldn't afford to shoot there for the reasons we've already talked about. This was independently financed. So the filming took place in North Carolina with only a couple of location shoots done in New York City to capture some of the more famous landmarks to help sell the illusion. They do quite a good job. I feel like in my memory is that this is a fairly New York feeling movie. And I think that's still true watching it now, even though they don't shoot in New York hardly at all. So yeah, good work. It took 3 puppeteers to operate Splinter. Kevin Clash, who these days is famous for, famous for some bad stuff, but moving on from that for a second, famous for being Elmo. He was Elmo for a long time, but he was the puppet and the facial expressions. And then some other puppeteers who I assume they're not named here, which means they're probably not as known, operated, the arms for the puppet. Someone noted, I can't remember who it was, I watched a YouTube video years ago about this movie. I can't remember which YouTuber it was, but they talked about as well little details about the puppeteering. Apparently there's a point when Splinter points to emphasize his point, so he finishes his sentence with a point. But apparently the puppeteers chose to have his tail flap in a pointing fashion at the same moment. So he sort of points with his finger and his tail simultaneously. That's brilliant. That's just so good.
Yeah, that's very good.
Love that choice. So yeah, the motors that were built into each turtle's head to create the facial expressions were packed quite tightly into it, and they were quite uncomfortable for the performers to wear. Not surprising, they look deeply uncomfortable. Apparently the noise was quite bad as well. Josh Pace, who played Raph, has described the noise as being like in Grand Central Station at rush hour with a tin can over your head. That does sound unpleasant. I've been to Grand Central Station.
That sounds very unpleasant.
Yeah, horrible. So Jim Henson's company were asked to work on the movie. They'd actually did it sort of as a favor to Steve Barron, who's the director, because he directed the pilot episode of The Storyteller, which was Jim Henson's kind of pet dream project that he'd always wanted to work on, and that didn't really take off in the end, which is a real shame. Back in like '87, and it set the first episode set the tone for the whole series. So Henson kind of felt like he sort of owed Barron the favor and agreed to do it, but apparently Henson was quite upset when with the finished movie and how much violence there was in it. He was proud to have sort of helped the advance the sort of the art of the animatronics, because obviously Henson Company's puppeteering, not just for like Splinter and stuff, but also for the facial expressions and the motors that moved those faces and made those faces so expressive. They're very central to this movie working. If they had all dead-eyed, weird faces that didn't move properly, a lot of this movie falls down. So the Henson Company did a great job, and I'm sad to hear that Henson wasn't pleased in the end. He viewed the violence as excessive, pointless, and not his style. That's the quote. So, bit of a shame.
I don't think that's. Yeah, I think that is a shame, because I think it's. I think all that stuff's done really well. Like we've said, it still holds up today.
Yeah. On the subject of that, actually, this was actually the last theatrical film that Jim Henson was associated with, because he actually sadly passed away about a month and a half after the film's release. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing. Not only did he not care for the film, it was the last thing he made. So that is a shame. Because of the interior scenes in Wilmington were shot close to a nearby airport, this actually presented a problem for the animatronic heads that the Turtles would wear to make all their expressions move. There was somebody with a control separate, radio control, that would make the mouth open and shut and the eyes move and the expressions shift. But because the airport radio control tower would mess with the animatronics, and the controls would receive random signals from the control tower, which would cause the facial expressions to go into involuntary spasms in the middle of scenes. So they lost several takes to that and had to do them again. That does sound quite irritating, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
To help disguise how cumbersome and slow the Turtles' costumes were, dialogue scenes were shot at fractionally slower frame rates, so 23 frames per second instead of 24. That 1 frame a second doesn't sound like much, but what that allowed them to do was then fractionally speed it up to hide the how slow the Turtles were moving, particularly the lips. So that's interesting. Corey Feldman, who voiced Leonardo, was offered only $1,500 to do the movie, so $1,500 to do the voice work for the movie. He accepted because he understood that this was a low-budget independent film, which it technically was, and he was kind of hoping that they might have some success on VHS if they were lucky. And obviously, the movie ended up making millions of dollars at the box office. It doesn't mention here if he got a big payout as a result of that. But I hope he did, because he does a good job. All the voice actors, actually, we haven't really talked about the voice actors, but obviously, Corey Feldman was Donatello, Brian Tochi was Leonardo, and Robbie Rist was Michelangelo, and we've already talked about. You okay?
No, I was just going to say, in general, all the voice actors are brilliant. In terms of us not speaking about them, they're all fab. And
I've just discovered that Splinter was also not just puppeteered by Kevin Clash, but voiced by him. So there you go. Elmo and Splinter are one in the same. So yeah, we already talked about Josh Pacey's Raphael, the only actor that voices the turtle and is the physical body. He went on a podcast called I Was There Too. Now, I've never listened to this podcast, but I've always heard about it and always thought it sounded interesting. It's basically interviews of people who are on the sets of big movies, but in small roles, or not necessarily like the director or the writer or whatever. And they sort of find out their perspective on the production. So Josh Pacey, who played Raphael, is on there, and he says that director Steve Barron was actually fired near the end of the production, as the producers thought the film was becoming too dark, and they were concerned about that. And I do sometimes wonder if some of the lighter elements, some of the goofier moments, the pizza landing on Splinter's head, things like that, may have been added later on to help reduce because we know they edited it to remove Michelangelo's arc of going darker. They also edited it to make it so that kid doesn't die. I wonder if those are choices made after Steve Barron leaves the project.
Certainly sounds like it, doesn't it?
So actually, here we go. So in the script and novelization, the young boy that Tatsu attacks was to die from the beating. The sounds of the boy breathing and others saying he'd be all right was added at the last minute after the movie ratings board objected to the scene. Although in the French movie, the kid does die. In the French version of the movie, they left that in for some reason. Is that what that's saying? I guess so. Sure. Okay, fine. Weird. Originally, Steve Barron wanted to replicate April O'Neil's jumpsuit look from the early comics and the cartoon. So it was going to, the yellow jumpsuit and the big red hair. But apparently Judith Hoag found the jumpsuit horrifying and the idea was nixed. Instead, they gave her the yellow raincoat in the beginning of the movie as an homage to the yellow jumpsuit from the cartoon and the comics, which is fine. I think that's you know what? I kind of agree with her. Like, the jumpsuit might have looked a bit silly.
Yeah, I've not seen the jumpsuit, to be honest. Before I go to give an opinion on that, I've never seen the jumpsuit, so I'll look it up now.
I was gonna say, I reckon if you just Google April O'Neil, I reckon that like image one is going to be the classic jumpsuit look.
Yeah, I can see why she didn't want to wear that. I think, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. God, there is a lot of fan art of April O'Neil that is like borderline difficult and problematic to see. Jesus, I regret googling April O'Neil.
What have you searched? Just April O'Neil?
Yeah, there's nothing like overtly like it's not like nothing graphic, but there's lots of like April O'Neil with a very comic booky figure, let's say, an exaggerated figure.
Ah, right, okay.
A lot of that, even that stuff makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see the jumpsuit. Yeah, I can see. I don't think that would have worked in this movie.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you there. So
why wasn't she back for the sequel?
Well, see, now that is an interesting question. So, she was apparently not asked to come back to the film sequel. Now, the word on the street is that they had found her to be a little bit difficult to work with. They said she'd complained particularly about the 6-day-a-week work schedule. She'd also complained about the amount of violence in the movie, and they just felt it was better to part ways. Now, I don't want to make any generalizations about what's happened here, but historically, Chris, I have found that whenever productions, usually fronted by men, part with a female actor, actress, or creative on grounds of them being quote-unquote difficult, it's usually just because they spoke their mind, and that's would be fine from a man, but apparently is not acceptable from a woman. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what happened here. I don't want to throw anyone into ill repute, but we have had several stories that have come up, even on this very podcast. In fact, I forget the actress's name, but the female lead in Men in Black, what was her name? Apologies, I'm going to look it up because I feel like if I'm going to talk about her, I should at least have her name. Men in Black cast. Too much stuff comes up when you type in Linda Fiorentino. She had a reputation for being quote unquote difficult to work with and essentially got blackballed out of Hollywood. But what I've heard is that actually she wasn't particularly difficult to work with. She was just, honest about what was working or wasn't working, like anyone would be in a situation like that, creatively voice their opinion, which everyone's allowed to, and then they were sort of blackballed. Now, again, I don't know what happened here. Maybe she really was a nightmare to work with, and it was a real problem, and she made the set very difficult, and that's why they were just like, you know what, let's recast. That's okay. But I would be willing to, if someone put a gun to my head and said make a guess, I think I'd be more likely to lean towards that it was the sexism thing, personally, just because I've seen and heard so many stories of it. But I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah,
we weren't there.
Yeah, we don't know. But that's crazy that, for what I assume is quite... I don't know, is the person that played Who's the one that's remembered?
It's her.
It's
Judith Hogue. Yeah, for sure. It's the one that's remembered.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nothing
nothing
performance
against
is
the
so
poor
strong.
actress.
I can't see how it wouldn't be.
Yeah, nothing but against the
Like,
poor
I
actress that takes over the role, whose name escapes me right now, but I'll find it in a second. But it's nowhere near as good a performance or as iconic.
Right.
Paige Turco. Yeah, nowhere near.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, Christ, I would argue the Megan Fox version of April O'Neil is probably a step above Paige Turco.
Oh, right. Is she good in the role, is she?
Yeah, I mean, she's not as good as Judith Hogue, but she's pretty good in the role. I think they wrote a different approach to the character that fit Megan Fox better. I don't think Megan Fox could have played this version of the character, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I thought she did go away with it. It's the usual thing though, with they put Megan Fox in one of those sort of Michael Bay produced movies. You know, there's a lot of unnecessary sort of wearing skimpy outfits and all that shit, which is always problematic. Like there's a bit where I think she tries to seduce someone by wearing like a schoolgirl outfit. It's really weird.
Yeah,
I didn't like that part. But yeah, no, I think Megan Fox is a better actress than she gets credit for. Yeah, I'd say she puts in a pretty charming performance.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, the problem then becomes though when she gets teamed up with Stephen Amell, who plays Casey Jones in the second one. And I like Stephen Amell as an actor, but that's a bad combo. That doesn't work at all. Those two do not have any chemistry with each other whatsoever. Individually, they both could have given good, are capable of giving good performances as those characters, but together it was a bad combo. So yeah, although she is very funny teamed up. She gets teamed up a lot with her cameraman. Is Will Arnett, and he gets sucked into the adventure in different parts as well. And like the reluctant cameraman that doesn't want to be there, sort of thing. And that's pretty fun. They have a good dynamic. So yeah,
nice.
So yeah, maybe at some point we'll watch enough of this shit that we'll be running out of movies from the 90s and 80s, and we'll end up watching the fucking Michael Bay Turtles movies. Who knows? I rule out nothing.
Yeah. It could definitely go long enough for that to happen.
Yeah, and I don't think the second one is that bad. I think the second one's pretty fun. I don't think it's not a masterpiece, but it's all right. So towards the end of the movie, one of the street punks, actually I think played by Sam Rockwell, young Sam Rockwell, tells the police chief to check out East Warehouse over on Lardman Island. This is obviously a reference to Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the creators of the Turtles and writers of this film. I think that's fun, although they wrote the movie, so is that them acknowledging themselves? It seems strange, but there was a third writer, so yeah, maybe it was that guy that added it. In the foot warehouse, there are boxes in the foreground that near the skate halfpipe that read Mirage. This is obviously a reference to Mirage Comic Books, the company that Eastman and Laird started to release their Turtles comics under that brand. Mirage was completely their creation, Mirage Comics. So this is an interesting one. We're nearly at the end, by the way, Chris. I'm sorry, this is taking ages. I need the toilet as well, so I'm feeling it. In the original ending, after the Turtles defeat Shredder and they celebrate on a rooftop, there is a scene where April and Danny, the young boy, go to a comic book publisher and pitch the idea of walking, talking turtles. The publisher rejects the idea on the grounds that it's too far-fetched. All the while, unknown to him, the turtles are watching through the building's window. Michelangelo seems to fall, but is revealed he's just hanging on the ledge, commenting on what he just heard. The clip can be found online, featuring the voices of the on-set performers as stand-ins for the turtles, so they never actually got dubbed and put in the final cut. That's a fucking weird scene, and I'm glad it's not in the movie.
Oh, I'm YouTubing it right now. That sounds amazing.
It's a weird choice. I mean, I think they set that up earlier with April drawing the turtles, so I'm like, I kind of feel like that's like a payoff to that idea. But yeah, weird. There are 3 newswomen mentioned in this movie or seen in the movie. Obviously, we meet April. Two other ones. One is seen on screen. She's like I think she's an on-screen presenter when we visit the studio, and then there's one that's named at the end that's not seen. So we have April. The other one is called May, and the third one is called June. So they're all named after months. So that was fun.
That's fun.
That is fun. Have you got the scene? Can you see the scene?
Yeah, it seems all right. It looks quite funny to me.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll watch it after. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah. I've not got it with audio, but yeah.
I'll take your word for it. No, I'll watch it later. So this is actually the highest-grossing independent film of all time, or at least it was. Sorry, until it got pipped in 1999. Just under 10 years later by the Blair Witch Project. This movie made 135 million in the box office. And then another 66 million in the foreign box office. So that is around 200 million for a movie that cost about 10 to make.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
That's so good. No wonder it got 2 more sequels. No wonder. Now, last bit of trivia. People will know about this. In the UK, they were not known as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were known as the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, which is what I grew up with. The original 80s cartoon got completely rebranded for the UK and Ireland because the word ninja was essentially assumed to be a word that equates to assassin, and they didn't think a show about murderers was a good idea. So they were the Hero Turtles, and that's how I knew them for most of my young life. I remember the very first time I came across Ninja Turtles, being like, what the fuck are Ninja Turtles? And being very confused. So the film went through edits in the UK that are according to that. So there's edits to the titles and some of the language used, the word ninja, ninjutsu, I assume taken out. They also crop some of the images to cut out their weapons, particularly the nunchucks are sort of removed in the UK edit. But eventually when it came to home video, I don't think any of that stuff was changed. I think it was back to normal, and it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In fact, that might be where I came across their true name, was when we got to the home video release of this movie, because even though in the cinema it was Hero Turtles, on DVD and video at that time, it would have been the other way around. And I think that was a choice to sort of separate it from the cartoon and emphasize the darker tone. This one is.
Yeah, I don't ever remember. That's interesting. I don't ever remember it being to my memory it being Hero Turtles. So that's
but that's how I first heard that theme tune. Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I got something caught in my throat as I started singing. That was how I knew them. Anyway, time for your favourite segment in the world, Chris. Cars exist.
Meow.
Very quickly, Donnie is fixing up a 1942 Ford 1-ton pickup. And Casey Jones drives a 1964 Volkswagen Campmobile, which is a very apt vehicle. It feels right. That feels right. So there you go. That's all the triv. We did it. In summary, good film. Enjoyed that one. Where are we going next? That's the big thing.
Well, Dan, we had Clerks. Could have been a trilogy.
Yep.
We've now got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You don't want to watch the
I'm genuinely scared of two things now. I'm scared of having to watch the third Turtles movie and having to do the Turtles movies in the Christmas slots.
Well done.
Go on.
Well done.
Go on.
Obviously, where we're going next is Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, good. Yeah, sure. Another trilogy. I see what you're doing.
Another film that could start a trilogy. Over to you.
Brilliant. Great choice. I love Shaun of the Dead. That's very exciting.
You've got a real difficult choice of trying to find a Christmas film that you love that could also be the start of a trilogy.
We'll see.
Well, or I guess doing Hot Fuzz. It's up to you.
Yeah, we could just do Hot Fuzz. No, that's a good choice. I love the Cornetto trilogy, and Shaun of the Dead is obviously a classic, and I love a good zombie movie. I'm a big zombie guy. Love me a zombie film. Let's do it. I'm very excited by that choice. And I'm relieved I'm not having to watch the third Ninja Turtles movie. Just saw it once. Don't really fancy seeing it again. I guess at some point we're probably going to have to cover it. As much as I don't want to. But thank you everyone for listening. As always, if you want to hear us talk about Shaun of the Dead right now, head over to our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. $1 simple a month. You can do that. You can hear it right now because the episodes of this podcast and our Analyzing Avatar podcast go up 1 week early on there. If you have any thoughts on this podcast, feel free to stick them in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or send them to us at mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk, or you can head over to our Discord if you're a member of the Patreon and you can give us feedback there. I'd also say, and we did this on the last Korra episode of the season, and this is like the second episode of Rewind review. So yeah, but tell us what you had for breakfast. Actually, no, we did that. If you want to tell us what you had for breakfast, wait, let me adjust this. Tell us what you had for breakfast on the Cora episode. So it's episode, I think, 78? Let me check. Bear with me. I'm going to find out. I want to do this right. No, God, 85. I was very wrong. Episode 85 of Analyzing Avatar. Go to the comments of that. Even if you don't listen to that podcast, tell us what you had for breakfast. If you want to leave a comment on the video for this one, what you had for tea. What did you eat for your dinner last night? What was your meal, your main meal in the evening? Let's do the other side of the day.
Yes, let us know.
Stick that in the comments. The reason we say this is because engagement is important, annoyingly, on these algorithms, and people commenting creates engagement, and it makes the algorithm more likely to share it. So it's a fun thing for us, and at some point on reviews this season, we'll go back through your answers, and hopefully we get some answers before the season is fully recorded, and then we can do some towards the end, and we'll actually read through them on one of the podcasts, and that'll be fun. So keep your eyes out for that as well, especially if you do leave an answer. What did you eat for dinner last night? We will read through your answers and maybe judge some answers.
Yeah. Of course we will. Let's dissect some dinners. Why not?
I said I had a phone case delivered during this podcast, Chris.
Yes.
It's come with a bunch of stickers of sausage dogs, like quite big stickers too.
I have no.
And they don't go on the case because there's no room on the case for a sticker to go because it's like got lots of like patterns and weird things. So you couldn't put a sticker on the case. What the fuck is the point of these stickers? I am fascinated by what's just happened. Oh, the company that have made this case,
are
called
also do stickers.
Dasfond. No, they're called Dasfond, which I guess is like a bit like Dachshund, which is the correct name for a sausage dog, right?
I have no idea.
Well, there you go. That's why. I'll take a picture of those and I'll try to put them somewhere. That's really weird. Anyway, sorry, I just spotted them in the box as we were wrapping up. I was like, what's this? So those are all the ways you can interact with us and help us, of course. You can keep listening. We appreciate that. You can tell a friend. All that jazz also helps. Or leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. We appreciate anyone who does anything like that. But yeah, the most important one right now, head over to this video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/nothingbutstatic. Find the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode of Rewind Reviews and tell us what you have for dinner. What was your tea last night?
Yeah.
We'd
love to know.
I want to know. Right, that's everything for this week. Come back in a week's time. Obviously, we're going to do the other one. That other one. What's it? The Shaun of the Dead. But in the meantime, Chris, take us home.
I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Doolan.
And this review has been Rewound.